Welcome back to WD Magic Cast for the week of July 22nd, 2024. This is episode 265. WD Magic Cast, the show about the mouse, the Marvels, the galaxy, and beyond. I'm your host, Matthew Graken. In this week's show, Matthew Leonard and I sit down and discuss The Idea Man, the documentary about Jim Henson. It is, just wait and see what our thoughts are. Also, we're going to be discussing the passing of Bob Newhart. Very sad news. Make sure to join the conversation on our social networks, where we can be found pretty much everywhere at WD Magiccast. On Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Threads. We are out there again at WD Magiccast. Also, make sure you check out the WD Magiccast shop on TeePublic, where you can get yourself a lot of cool WD Magiccast swagger, t-shirts, hoodies, shirts, bags for the beach, insulated coffee mugs without coffee. All the things are available on there. Check them out. Get something nice for yourself and help out your favorite podcast. Links to all these are in the show notes. And on that bombshell, on with the show. There are many people out there that have influenced the world. Mahatma Gandhi, George Washington, Walter Elias Disney, and of course with that, Jim Henson. And someone else who has influenced the world and changed the direction of many rivers. Matthew Leonard has traveled his way back from traversing the world, bringing smile to little children's faces, and has, graciously put his felt down to discuss The Idea Man with us. Matt, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. So I really, whenever I saw that they were having this documentary, obviously I thought of Jim Henson first, and then I thought of you. And knew we would be talking about this. I finally got around to watching it. You finally have 5 minutes free in your schedule to be able to talk about it.
Used up 3 of those minutes. So.
Yeah. I have a script to follow sometimes.
Okay, well, we're done. So that's all the time I have. I'll see you later. Thanks for
Thank you for coming, and I hope you make sure you join us on the social networks.
Drive safe, everybody.
Say goodnight, Gracie. Unfortunately, we came up with this idea. We finally figured out a date. We sit down. We're okay. We got everything figured out, and then we get the news yesterday of the passing of Bob Newhart, which is really, it's tragic. It's sad. Also, it's not unexpected. I mean, he was 94 years old.
He's old, but man, what a life and what a legacy to leave behind.
Can you really say, is there anything someone can really say negative or like bad about him?
He, from what I heard, just one of the nicest guys in the world. One of the best.
He's always, pleasant to work with, always, willing to do a project, and very professional about it.
And very, hysterically funny, but very gentle in his humor. It's a very gentle humor, and it's a humor that I don't think you really find anymore. It was largely clean. It was mostly clean. And he was one of those rare talents, one of those rare comics who, what Bob Newhart did that was so funny wasn't so much what he said, it was how he reacted to. And so if you want, when he was on the Bob Newhart show, when he was on Newhart, when he was on, and even in his movies, with his Big Bang Theory or whatever, it was okay with him if somebody else got the laugh. And he would just, the laugh was him responding to it.
Yes.
That was what was so funny about it, was him just sort of, Tom Poston or whoever coming in and doing, You know, I mean, Marsha Wallace, Tom Poston, Julia Duffy, any of the greats that he worked with, Will Ferrell, you know, in Elf, just doing hysterically funny things, and him just staring at them blankly and kind of making sure you understand that's not how it's supposed to be, right? You know, like that kind of thing. It's so, you know, he was great at his reactions to things. And if you look at his the famous phone routines he used to do, I mean, that's what it was. It wasn't jokes. It was him reacting to this whole other conversation, and the audience would fill in what that conversation was. He was a rare talent.
And I remember seeing a someone talking about Newhart. This was years ago.
Yeah.
And they said no one could do a phone conversation like he could.
Right.
It was the way, like you said, his reaction. You only heard the one side of the conversation, but the way he reacted and the way that he timed his responses and the way he responds just made them absolutely hysterical. No one else can do a phone routine like he can. It's just genius. I mean, you see everyone else do it on TV shows and whatnot, and okay, yeah, they're amusing and whatnot, but he's the master.
It was very Jack Benny. I was one of the Jack Benny fan pages I was on. Somebody said that, like, Bob Newhart's humor was very, very much like Jack's. Again, in that, you know, like Jack was okay with somebody else getting the laugh. Bob Newhart was okay with getting the laugh. Jack Benny, it was all. I mean, Jack's real talent wasn't so much that Jack was funny. It was all in Jack's timing. It was all in Jack's reactions. And Bob Newhart was absolutely the same way. You know, if you think about those phone conversations, the amount of pause you have to give to let the other person who isn't there speak, you know, to let that person speak, or let the audience sort of think about that person speaking and then react to that. You know, it's really sort of brave as a comic to do, to sit there and just let 30 seconds, 45 seconds of silence go by and then react to it, and you get a laugh. I mean, yeah. Who else can react to nothing and get a laugh? You know, he didn't insult the audience. He let the audience fill the joke in for themselves, and he was fantastic. And if you ever want a great movie, he was in. Have you ever seen? Frank Oz directed it. We'll talk about it later on, I'm sure. Have you ever seen In and Out with Kevin?
I was gonna say it's In and Out.
Oh my God, he plays a school principal, a homophobic school principal, and not really homophobic, but a nervous school principal in those rights and regards, and hysterically funny in it. I mean, just, you know, and he does it in a way that he's not, you know, weird thing to say. He plays homophobic in a very likable Bob Newhart kind of way.
Yes.
Like you sort of you don't want to, I don't want to say you see his side of things, but you understand where he's coming from, that he's from this other generation and this other mindset, and
you get his angle.
He's trying to protect himself, and he's trying to protect his job, and, you know, but he's so funny in that role. I mean, that's also just a great movie. I mean, you know, Kevin Kline, Wilford Brimley, you know, several others, Joan Cusack, but Bob Newhart is hysterically funny in that film, and that's a great one. And then, of course, you know, I've still never actually seen it, although multiple people have said I should see it. Bob Newhart has said his all-time favorite film role, Elf. He said there's just nothing that he's been prouder of than playing Papa Elf in Elf.
Really?
Yeah, I read that somewhere just in the last day or so of reminiscence about the man. It was like he was really proud. It was work that he did that he was really proud of.
Okay. We will have to compare notes sometime off air about that movie.
I've never seen it.
I only first saw. Did I see all of it, or did I only see most of it last December?
Okay.
One of my teachers put it on to show our students.
Yeah.
So that's been my first exposure because I'd never seen it either. And
Well,
yeah,
you
let's
acknowledge that it's if you're into Will Ferrell and that kind of thing.
yes.
Yeah.
So if you like Will Ferrell, you'll enjoy the movie.
And Bob Newhart really liked being in that movie too. You know, so
Okay.
that's the point we were trying to make.
Yeah.
And then, of course, to bring things back around to the Disney side of things, and a lot of people tend to forget this. I tend to forget this is that he was the voice of Bernard in the rest of the two Rescuers movies.
Rescuers and Rescuers Down Under.
Yeah.
77 and 89.
No, later, 91, 92, something like that.
It was between Little Mermaid and Aladdin.
Yeah. Because I remember I was in high school. I was in junior high when that
90.
came out. Really?
90. Yep.
No.
Yes, wait.
Really?
Yes, wait, Ted.
I thought it came out slightly later. I thought it was 91. No, I take that back. It was out early. Okay, it was out very late 90.
Yes.
Yeah, no, right. Okay. I was in 7th grade. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because Aladdin came out in 92.
2.
So this, like I said, this was the movie that bridged between Mermaid, which came out 89.
Beauty and the Beast was late 91.
Okay, sorry. Mermaid, Rescuers Down Under, Beauty and the Beast. And Rescuers Down Under is the one that gets lost in there.
Yeah. It was all
yeah. 91 is Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah. But yeah, he was Bernard in those.
Yeah, and he again did so well. He translates very nicely to a mouse.
I think the thing with Bernard, it was a nervousness that Bernard had, and he played that really well. He was really good at playing unsure of uncertainty. Was sort of in his wheelhouse, and I think it's kind of in every character, kind of going back to what we were saying about Inside Out, where he plays this homophobe. It's not so much that he's homophobic, it's that it's an uncertainty of everything. That's an uncertainty of Kevin Kline's character, an uncertainty of what that will mean for the school, an uncertainty of all of it. He played uncertain very well.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a big part of his role as Bernard.
The uncertainty, the not sure about, should we actually be doing this? Should we be going on this adventure? Yeah. And then you have Jaja's character of, being, oh yes, darling, we need to do this. We must.
It's no problem. He just sort of breezes through it, no problem, and he's kind of wait, hang on, slow down. I don't feel comfortable with this, Yeah.
Wait, we're flying on an albatross?
And I think that was how maybe not all of his roles were played, but a lot, certainly the character he played on Newhart, it was always that sort of uncertainty of what the characters around him were doing.
With the Bob Newhart show or Newhart?
Newhart.
Okay.
Dick Loudon and this is another confession I have to make to you, and you're going to hate me for this because you've been saying this to me for the last 20 years. I see the face you're making at me. I don't like it. Oh, I see the face you're making at me, and I don't like it. Friends for 20 years, and I think one of the first things you ever said to me was that I need to see the Bob Newhart show because you think that I would like it, and I have to confess in all of my life, I've never seen an episode of the Bob Newhart show. I've never watched it.
It's a good show. He plays a psychologist,
right?
So take that character that you were describing and put him as a psychologist,
right? And again, backed by Tom Poston, who he worked with a lot. Marsha Wallace, who was brilliant in everything she did, the late Marsha Wallace, Suzanne Plachette. And there's somebody else really good on that show.
Let's see. You had Bob Newhart, Suzanne Plachette, Bill Daly, Marcia Wallace.
Marsha Wallace, yeah.
Marcia Wallace. Peter Bosner, Jack Riley, Florida Furbus.
Okay.
John Felder.
Oh, John Fiedler?
Fiedler, yeah.
Fiedler, Piglet!
Yes.
Yeah, that's who I'm thinking of. I knew there was somebody like surprising on it. Right. Oh, talk about somebody who played uncertain and nervous really well. He was the master.
He was in 17 episodes of it.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I gotta go find me some Bob Newhart now.
Oliver Clark.
But I grew up certainly with I remember the other Newhart show where he played the innkeeper.
Yes.
Or if you want to get specific, he played the he was still playing the character from the Bob Newhart show, Dreaming. The innkeeper. One of the great finale reveals of all time was that the entire series was a dream sequence of his Bob Newhart show character.
Yeah, that was a great show. This is my brother Daryl. This is my other brother Daryl.
Well, that's a thing. Like if you think about we're talking about, letting somebody else get the laugh. Larry, Daryl, and Daryl, he would let them get. I mean, they were hysterically funny on the show, and it was just him reacting to what Larry, Daryl, and Daryl were doing, or what Larry, Daryl, and Daryl were saying. And Daryl and Daryl weren't saying anything. It was just Larry.
Yeah.
But they were great characters, and it was just him reacting to it, And then clearly his friendship with Tom Poston, which was, played on the original Newhart show across all three of them, because Tom Poston was on the Newhart show was on the Bob Newhart show with him, was on Newhart with him, and was on his later series Bob, which I understand wasn't quite as good. But
I think I tried watching that, and no, it just didn't.
Somebody said it didn't quite land. But, obviously he and Tom Poston had a real good friendship and worked well together, and,
And see, it's okay to be talking about these shows because they are Fox shows.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah.
And so therefore they are now Disney shows. Newhart is available on Prime Video, seasons 1 through 8. Let's see here. Let me try and find the Bob Newhart show again. And also In and Out is a Fox production. No, Paramount. Sorry, Paramount.
Yeah.
But that's fine because we're talking about Bob. And nope.
Strictly stated Disney.
Yeah, Bob Newhart show is you have to purchase. It's not. I can't find it anywhere unless maybe it's like on Pluto or one of those. But
I don't think it's on Pluto, but I'll look later.
Yeah. But if you want to check out Newhart, you can check it out on Prime Video, and obviously Rescuers Down Under on Disney Plus. Bob, thank you for years and years of just pure magical laughing.
Yeah.
Speaking of magic
and laughing.
Let's go on to the magic shop in the magic store and talk about the Idea Man.
Let's talk about the Idea Man.
What was your idea of the Idea Man?
Well, this has been an ongoing. They've been talking about a Henson documentary for years, and in a really in-depth Henson documentary. There's a wonderful book for people if you're interested in this. If you liked Idea Man, or if you're interested in Jim Henson. There's a biography released about 10 years ago by Brian J. Jones. It's a thick read. It's a heavy read. It covers everything. Everything. And yet talking to friends. They're like, it covers everything, and at the same time doesn't cover enough.
Okay.
And it's the same thing with the Idea Man. I mean, the Idea Man covers everything, and at the same time doesn't cover enough, because Jim's life was just full. I think Idea Man is perfect. Is a perfect description, and we've talked about this before. Jim was a walking idea man. I mean, there were just tons of ideas in his head, and it wasn't just Muppets. It wasn't just Dark Crystal. It wasn't just Labyrinth. I mean, just all these ideas that he had in his head. I know we've talked about this before, but go on YouTube and search out the pitch reel for the Jim Henson Hour, which is a series that he did it was one of the last series that he produced. It was an anthology series, and the first half of the first half of the show was generally something with the Muppets, Kermit and Gonzo, and a bunch of new characters trying to put on a show every week. It was sort of a modern day Muppet show for 1989. And then the second half of the show was usually John Hurt as the storyteller. And then sometimes there were other things they would do as well. But to hear the show that was original as it existed in Jim's mind and what he wanted to do with it and how he wanted to produce that show, it was insane. I mean, it was absolutely crazy. He wanted to produce practically a different show every week. And, he just had tons of ideas. I also want to talk a little bit about where the title comes from. Is not just the fact that Jim himself was an idea man, but to give you an idea, one of his early puppet characters that he would do on the Ed Sullivan Show and on Jack Parr was this, and Sesame Street. He did it on Sesame Street too. There was this character called the Idea Man, and it was this giant it was this face made out of giant rubber bands. And there would be two giant rubber bands that would make the eyes, and I think there was maybe one for the nose, and there was a huge one that was the mouth.
Yes.
You would control it from underneath. It's an insane rig. It's a beautiful rig. And he would film this thing usually in front of some type of projection. And it was Jim just kind of philosophizing about the world and everything that was going on in the world in the late 60s and early 70s. And then of course on Sesame Street, the character would just sort of would count to 10 or something, count to 15.
And they show it in the Idea Man. They show him working with it in an alleyway or somewhere.
Yeah. It's a really cool puppet. Actually, if anybody has the is it the second season or third season of the Muppet Show on DVD? I can't remember which one it's on, but there, you can find it on. I'm sure you can find this on YouTube as well. There's an old educational TV special he did called The Muppets on Puppets, which is sort of pre-Sesame Street thing, and it's Jim sort of giving a history of puppetry and going behind the scenes of puppetry, and he actually does the Idea Man there, and then they pull back the camera and you see him and Frank and Jerry Jewell and whoever and Don Saleen demonstrating the Idea Man and how the Idea Man works. So the Jim's biography was out about 10 years ago, and ever since then there have been talks about biopic on Jim and various documentaries on Jim. I'm thrilled that they finally teamed with Ron Howard, because I think he did a wonderful job. It covers everything, and at the same time, man, it doesn't nearly cover enough because you could go on.
No. Especially once he got going in the 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, he had his hand in so many different things.
The truth of the matter is you could take any aspect of his life and any aspect of his work, whether that's Sesame Street, whether that's The Muppet Show, whether that's Fraggle Rock, whether it's Dark Crystal, whether it's Labyrinth. I mean, you could do a full-fledged, in-depth 2-hour documentaries on any one of those projects.
Yeah.
And still not cover everything. What Idea Man tries to do is to cover the bits in between the things, because I think all of the information out there on Sesame Street, it's out there. You can find it. There's a fantastic documentary on Sesame Street, the title of which is eluding me right now, but it came out 4 or 5 years ago. Sunny Days, I think, is the name of it. I have got it on Blu-ray somewhere around. And that covers a ton of it. Find of Muppets and Men, which was a documentary that Jim did, covering the making of the Muppet Show down at Fraggle Rock, or any of the special features. Find the Fraggle Rock DVDs, because they went so in depth on Fraggle Rock. There's been a couple different Dark Crystal documentaries, a couple different Labyrinth. The special features on all of these movies and DVDs covers all this stuff. So I think what they tried to do with Idea Man was also cover the early years, to cover some of the in-betweens, to cover some of his more personal life. And I think it does that very well.
Sesame Street, 50 Years of Sunny Days. Is that the one you're thinking of?
No, I don't think that, because I think that's the one with Joseph. That's the TV special with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
TV show. Yeah, got a bunch of people in it. Does it have Levitt in it? It's got Usher.
Yeah, no, that's the one with Joseph. That's the celebration. That's the TV special they did with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It'll come to me. I should go in the other room and look it up.
But moving on.
Moving on.
Yeah, I like, because they touched on projects, but then they, like you said, they touched on the in between about, how finding people and bringing them under his wing and expanding, and always, whatever Brian is talking about, they want a vacation, but his dad would still be working and still,
right,
doodling and coming up with ideas and still figuring things out about projects.
He's always working.
And broached on some, the side effects of that too, of, how Jane just didn't want to be part of that after a while.
Right.
And, how sometimes it was hard on his kids because he was always working.
Right.
But, or just he wouldn't sleep. He would, go 2 or 3 days on minimal or to no sleep and be, working on this project.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the subject of Jane too, because I think one of the things that it did really well was give Jane a voice. And I think her voice tends to get lost in a lot. I don't think people realize exactly how instrumental she was in the early days to the Muppets, to him. And I know Jane herself, in her life, she tried to take a back seat, and it took a lot of, I'd heard a thing that was one of the complaints when she read the first draft. She read an early draft of Jim's biography and went to the author and said, "I don't like it. I'm in here too much." It should really be the focus should be Jim. But no, Jane was very much a part of it, and very much, I know, for a lot of current puppeteers and modern, I hate to say modern puppeteers, but current puppeteers, she was very influential in keeping, I don't want to say keeping the ball in the air, but educating. Educating was very important to her, and pushing the art of puppetry, in new ways, and helping to innovate and help tomorrow's puppeteers was very, very important to her. And she was responsible for, you know, Jane was the one who brought in Steve Whitmire. You know, she was influential in a lot of ways, and she would do a lot of the training sessions and a lot of the sort of pre-casting sessions. She was involved in a lot of that. You know, before people got to Jim, they'd have to kind of get through Jane, in terms of the auditions and the interviews and that kind of stuff. So she's a very, very important part of the Henson Company and the Muppet family. And I'm thrilled that the documentary gave voice to her and put her in the spotlight a little bit as well.
Yeah, and like, what was the line that she claims that she's the one that discovered Jim Henson, or she found Jim Henson first?
I don't know if she would say that, but I think she was certainly a huge part of it. And I can't imagine. I think it all would have been very different if he hadn't found Jane. I can't imagine how it would have, because I think the way that he worked, it was important to have a romantic partner who was also a creative partner in the early days.
Yes.
I think that would have, it would, whoever was there first would have been both. You know, and I think he was fortunate to find her, that it was her. And I think she, you know, another half of it is Jim's outlook on life was such, and this is true for Jane, and it's true for a lot of the others who fell in step with Jim. Jim had a certain outlook on life, and there was a gentility to the way that he looked at things, and a you know, philosophy that he had towards things. And I think Jane was able to I think Jane was also believed in that philosophy herself, you know, or saw that philosophy herself in some ways. And I think, you know, that was important to him. And if you look at other people, some of the other collaborators he worked with, you know, Jerry Jewell specifically, I think of, you know, there's a mindset you have that Jim had. And I think he kind of needed his performers, his writers, his builders, the people who he collaborated with and worked with, you know, needed to, on some level, share that philosophy and share that mindset towards the world. And that's what allowed all of them to do the work, and to do the work alongside Jim, and allowed him to work with them. And so, yeah, so it's a very, it's fortunate, but it's also sort of not a surprise. Like if you stop and you think about who she was and how she looked at the world, and who he was and how he looked at the world, and the work that he was doing and the work that she did with him, you know, it kind of makes sense, and it's right.
Yeah. And a lot of those early forays into puppetry and into television and doing stuff, it was the two of them.
Yeah, all of the early Sam and Friends stuff was the two of them. And there was a Brian Meal he brought in as well, and actually took over for Jim. Jim went to, well, this comes up in the documentary, Jim went to Europe for a few months, backpacked across Europe and studied art, and discovered puppetry in Europe, where puppetry in Europe is not just for kids. It's a very serious art form. It's taken very seriously over there in a way that it's not taken seriously over here. And he came back realizing, like, no, wait, I can make a career of this. I can do something with this. But yeah, and while he was in Europe, Jane ran the show. It was Jane, you know, ran the company and ran the show until he came back. So, you know, that's kind of important too, that he had somebody who he could trust to do that.
And it's not like you make an easy phone call back then.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the puppetry was not the primary focus. It was a kind of stumbled upon by accident.
Right. He
Yeah.
wanted to be, he was interested in television. He was interested in filmmaking. He was interested in visual art. And he realized it's two things. There was a call for Jim to, or there was a call for puppeteers for an early morning, local TV show. And he went, great, this is my foot in the door for television. And went and borrowed a couple books on puppet building out of the library and built a couple puppets and got the job. But in building these puppets and doing this work, he realized that puppetry kind of combined all of his interests, and puppetry is it's a multifaceted, it's multidisciplinary. It's performance, it's sculpture, it's music, it's culture, it's history, it's language, it's dance, it's there's
Abstract. It's modern art. It's
science to it. There's engineering to it. There's biology. If you think about how the Skeksis move and how the creatures in the Dark Crystal and the Labyrinth move and how they want them to move, you're looking at how
yes.
you're looking at they specifically have mentioned that, like, how crustaceans and the what are they? The big monsters in Dark Crystal, which are basically crustaceans, and so they look at.
Yeah, it's been a while since it's been too long since I've seen it.
It'll come to me later. Is it the Gartham? Yeah, the Gartham. Which are basically crustaceans, and Jim. So puppetry is multidisciplinary, and so for Jim, he said, he realized that it was all of his interests kind of combined into one. And that was really kind of the start of it, But do yourself a favor, find a lot of some of it's in Idea Man, but go and seek it out on YouTube, as much of Jim's early stuff as you can find, because he was really experimenting with sound, particularly. Find Time Machine and watch it.
Timepiece.
Find Timepiece and watch it, because it's just so wild and out there, and there's not a puppet in sight anywhere in this 8-minute film, but it's it's about something, certainly. And it's Jim was not a puppeteer initially. It's easy to forget that he was really a filmmaker and an experimental filmmaker. Puppets just became part of that experiment, and then puppets just kind of became the way of it. And I frequently look at the world and I look at things around me and I just go, what would Jim think of this? What would Jim do with? I think he would be, and I've talked to a few other, puppeteers and Muppet fans about this, and a couple of people who, friends of mine who knew Jim. I think he would be very excited by some of the stuff, things like YouTube. He would be just enamored with.
Absolutely.
I have to find it. There was actually a thing. It was like one of the last projects he worked on, and he didn't finish it, unfortunately. Was literally, the idea was he gave, it was two young filmmakers that he was enamored with, and he loaded them up with some camera equipment and said, drive across, here's a car, here's some camera, here's a couple of video cameras, here's some sound equipment, some money, drive across the country and film whatever. And there's a whole pitch reel where he's talking about this, and he's talking about the future of television and entertainment. This is like 1989 or something. And he says in it, he's like, one day there will be an outlet in the media where people will be able to film and produce their own work and share it with as many people as possible. And he talks about this, and you just sit there and go, well, there you have it. Jim Henson just invented YouTube in 1989. I mean,
The smartphone and YouTube at the same time.
yeah. I don't know about the smartphone, but he absolutely was like, he saw media coming. He saw the way that we take media in, and I think he would be tickled by it. And I think he would have been, I think Jim really would have been one of the, on the forefront of creating content for YouTube. And I think he would have schooled all of us in how to do it and how to do it properly.
Oh, absolutely. It would have changed the whole way we look at this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, can you imagine Jim Henson on TikTok?
It would be a lot smarter. Boy, but I'll tell you, you and I don't talk. Well, we might have talked about this a little bit. I don't think people realize how much of a footnote Jim was in terms of what we now look at in the industry as motion capture, which is all over in almost any movie you go to. Certainly
nowadays, it's everywhere.
Certainly any special effects movie that any Star Wars or the Marvel movies or anything like that, the character of Waldo C. Graphic in
Muppet Vision.
But here's the thing. Waldo predates Muppet Vision because he was a character on the Jim Henson Hour, which I mentioned earlier. So again, 1988, 89. It's a computer generated character who is controlled from there's a remote control mitt similar to how they do the Doozers and the Gorgs on Fraggle Rock. For people who know how they do the Doozers and the Gorgs on Fraggle, or it's an animatronic mitt that's hooked up to a computer, and they run the graphic, and the puppeteer, in this case Steve Whitmire, is puppeteering that thing in real time. And then they process it and whatever, and it's, man, that's the first motion capture right there, and it's another 10 years at least before people start really kind of experimenting with that a little bit, and you start putting ping pong balls on Mark Ruffalo or whoever or
Robert Downey Jr.
Andy Serkis, to make a character work. So, Jim was really and truly ahead of his time. He really was an idea man.
Well, what was it? Also, Labyrinth. Was it the one troll that they said it was pretty much all animatronic, animatronic controlled? Was it Toby or no?
No, Toby was the little boy.
Yes,
Toby was the baby. He was real. He was not an animatronic.
You sure?
Yeah, no, he was real. Brian Froud's the designer who designed all of Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. That's actually his son, Toby Froud. And I love this. Toby Froud now has his own production company, Stripey Pajama Productions. And if you've seen the movie Labyrinth, you'll realize why that's just the fan. If you're Toby Froud and you now have your own film production company, that is the perfect name for it.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, Hoggle was an animatronic character, but he'd been playing with animatronic characters in the Dark Crystal, not in Dark, but not a little bit in Dark Crystal, but definitely in Fraggle Rock, in the Muppet movies, and Great Muppet Caper. That's all in there, animatronic.
But he kept pushing it.
Yeah, he always pushing it, and always pushing what could be done with it to the extent that it's if you think about it in terms of, it's Kermit and Fozzie and Gonzo sitting in the middle of a lake in 1982, and then it's Hoggle walking around and talking with Jennifer Connelly in 1986, and then by 1990 you get to the Ninja Turtles, and then by 92, 93 you're getting into dinosaurs, and just pushing it in a way that's unbelievably realistic, And now you can do just about anything with it.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed this documentary. I enjoyed the information. I also really enjoyed how it was presented.
Yeah.
It wasn't cut and dry. It was visually uh, inspiring as well.
Hmm.
The way that they showed stuff. I also liked how they brought a lot of Jim's artwork and early artwork uh, into it as well, to what his uh, town was like, and some of this early images of home that he
Yeah.
had drawn, which just reminds you how great of an artist he was
Yeah. Yeah.
on top of everything
Everything
else.
else. What's the, there's a, I was saying this earlier. There's a oh, I wish I could remember the quote. There was some quote with Jane Henson where she was asked about, you know, Jim's level of success as a puppeteer, and Jim's response was Jim would have been successful even if he was a plumber, because it was just the way he worked. He just dogged everything that he put his mind to. He made it work. He made it happen.
uh, but
But I will say, having said that, I guess I imagine anybody who's like a real hardcore Muppet fan has already seen this, and I touched on this earlier. If you're a hardcore Muppet fan and you're looking for something new, unfortunately, there's not a lot of new material in there. Like I said, it's all kind of out there. But if you're somebody who doesn't know Jim and doesn't really know his work, absolutely take a look at this. It'll give you a new appreciation for the man, um, because he really was an incredible guy.
yeah, and there's a fair amount behind the scene footage.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is always
Uh,
always fun to watch Muppets behind the scenes.
oh yes,
That's real. That's where the real action happens.
see him in a steel bubble submerged in a lake to do the opening scene of Muppet Movie.
Yeah. Oh my god! And it took him like half an hour or something to unfold himself when they finally let him out of that thing. It was
Uh,
crazy. He was absolutely crazy with some of the stuff that you know.
well, he was no small man either.
Yeah, no, right. Yeah, he was 6'2", something like that. Oh, look, it's another game of Guess the Height. We haven't played Guess the Height in a while.
This is true.
But no, I think don't you dare do this to me. He's six. Actually, because we covered Jim's height on the show.
I think we did.
We did, but he's like 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah, it was something like that.
He was not a small man. None of them were. I think Dave Goles was the shortest, and he's like 5'10", 5'11", something like that.
Dave Goles is 5'9". He's shorter than me.
Okay.
Frank Oz 6'2".
Yeah.
Whitmire 6'4".
Really?
Yep. Carol's 5'10".
Okay.
Clash is 6 foot.
Okay.
Rita is only 5'2".
Who's 5'2"?
Rita Moreno.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
I don't know why she came up.
Okay. Well, she worked with the Muppets a lot.
Yeah. And Jim, 6'3".
6'3", yeah. I know he and Frank are up there. How old do we have Richard Hunt? How tall was Richard Hunt? He had 6'1". Richard Hunt was Scooter and Janice and Beaker, for people who don't know who we're talking about.
No, not Richard Hunt football. There we go. Richard Leo Hunt, is that him?
I don't know.
No, I'll tell you no.
Find
Nope.
his height. We might not have his height.
Him, I don't. Yeah, I can't find him.
All right. Well, we'll look that up later.
Bunch of other Richard Hunts, but not the Richard Hunt.
Not ours.
But on that note, what would you grade? How would you grade?
Oh, easily a 9 out of 10. Or no, that's not how I do things, is it? How would I grade this one? That's always the question, is how I would grade anything, because you always ask me to like 9 out of 10 or 4 out of 5 or something, and I give you something really weird.
9 out of 10, so you'd give it 6 pieces of toast and a waffle.
No, I already ate the toast. I would give this 12 ladybugs at the Ladybugs.
Ooh.
I would definitely give this 12 ladybugs at the Ladybugs picnic.
All right.
Or I would give this maybe a King of 8. Would be good.
I was actually just thinking that one.
That's
right now, King of 8 instead. No, King, yes, 8, no.
There's another. If you're looking for a great Jim did a stop motion film for Sesame Street called The King of 8, and that's another one where, dear God, look that up, because it's again Jim experimenting and playing with sound, and visuals. God, The King of 8 is fantastic. One of my all-time favorite Sesame Street bits.
I'll give it 72 paper clips.
72 paper clips. That's good. And a rubber ducky.
And a rubber ducky. I really enjoyed it. Like you said, it's nothing brand new if you are a huge Henson fan. If you are someone who likes the Muppets casually, or you like the Muppets but never really looked into the people behind it, or Sesame Street, or any of the many things that he's worked on, or if you're a film person, definitely check this out. It's captivating. It's well done. Like you said, it gives you a lot and nothing all at once. It gives you enough to make you appreciate a lot of what Jim did. And then opens the door for you to discover more on your own.
Yeah.
And Ron Howard did, I think, a brilliant job with it.
I was just reading a thing. They got a bunch of. It was just nominated for a bunch of awards.
Yes. I don't think I have the list.
Here we go. Jim Henson, 8 Emmy nominations, including Outstanding Cinematography for. God, let me try that again. Outstanding Cinematography for a Nonfiction Program, Outstanding Directing for a Nonfiction Program, Outstanding Picture Editing for a Nonfiction Program, Outstanding Documentary or Nonfiction Special, Outstanding Sound Editing for a Nonfiction Program, Outstanding Sound Mixing for a Nonfiction Program, Outstanding Writing for a Nonfiction Program, and Outstanding Music Composition for a Documentary, Series, or Special. So the Emmy Awards will be held on Sunday, September 15th at 8 p.m.
All right.
Yeah.
And in case you're wondering, score composed was by David Flipping.
Interesting.
So, it received quite a number of nominations, and well deserved. And I hope it comes home with a lot of hardware.
Yeah. But whether it does or not, it's still a fantastic documentary and worth checking out on Disney Plus.
Yes. Either way, please check it out. Anything else you want to add?
I'd like to add 2 + 7.
18.
Very good. Close enough.
Thank you. Wait, no, 24.
Sure. Why not?
Oh, no, the Abbott Costello skit. No, 28. Isn't it? 28. Yeah.
I know the skit you're talking about.
28. Sure, I remember I did.
And on that note,
I don't have my guitar with me.
Yes.
Thank you again. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. And we'll be talking soon.
I'm sure we will. Thank you.
Thank you again to Matt Leonard for joining us, and let us know what you thought of The Idea Man if you've seen it. If not, check it out and let us know on the social medias where I told you at the beginning. It's pretty much everywhere at WD Magiccast. I want to thank you for your time. I know how little time we all have these days, and the fact that you spend some of your time with us truly means a lot to me, to us over here at the WD Magiccast family. Please, if you could go on to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, leave us a rating review. We have all 5-star reviews at the moment. We need more. Keep them coming. This way they will promote the show as well. And speaking of promoting the show, please share a link on the social networks. Tag us along and let other people know about what you're listening to and help them discover our show. Won't believe in a big Disney family, and so do I. Don't forget to subscribe to the show while you're at it. This way you always know when new episodes is posted. While you're at it, consider becoming a premium subscriber to help the show out. You can do this over on Spotify Podcast. Links are in the show notes. Don't forget to check out the merchandise shop again and get yourself some cool WD Magiccast stuff. Remember, this show is brought to you by listeners like you. Whatever you're facing out there, whatever troubles are weighing on you, whatever shadows are chasing you, don't give up. Never give up. Never give in. You are special. You are unique. You are one of a kind because the world needs someone like you in it. Don't ever doubt yourself. I know it's easy for me to say, but you are here for a reason. You are affecting someone's life in ways that you do not realize. And someone needs you in their life. And if you need help, do not be afraid to ask. Sometimes help comes in the form of a stranger. It's not always someone that you know. Don't be afraid to ask for help because you are worth it. Like I said, never give up, never give in. Be your own hero and let your light shine for the world to see. I'd like to end this week's show with a quote from Walt Disney himself. When the subject permits, we let fly with all the satire and gags at our command. Laughter is no enemy to learning. Okay, that's from Walt Disney. Thank you again for listening, everyone, and I'll see you next time.